Hello and welcome to the High Potential Startup podcast series. Thanks for listening this week. We've had a change in our format and I've the privilege of bringing on a co-host. So my co-founder and the co-founder of Cavenagh Health, Stephanie Murtagh, has joined us this week, and we are sitting down with Guy Levy-Yurista, CEO of Synthace. He's joined us to discuss the challenges that they're facing, the opportunity they've got ahead, but he also shares a really interesting light on his background. It's not atypical. He hasn't come through the normal routes. He's seen a multitude of different industries and actually comes to the biotech, medtech space with a very different lens to everyone else. I hope you enjoy listening. Really looking forward to your feedback. Hi, Guy. Great to have you on the podcast and welcome to the show. Yeah, real pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, pleasure and real fun. It's going to be a fun discussion. I really appreciate you all having me here.
Right. And I take it you're joining from your holidays. Are you on vacation at the moment?
I am. Well, not really holidays. I was informed by my wife that this summer we will be working from Israel. So whereas on the day-to-day we're based out of the Washington, D.C. area, we took off for the summer for a couple months, just north of Tel Aviv, got an Airbnb by the beach. I'm suffering terribly, as you can imagine, with the amazing sunsets and and chilled white wine in the evenings, but I'll survive.
Good. I'm pleased to hear it. Well, look, I think we've got a lot of questions we want to get through. We want to get a better understanding of you and also the business, and really understand what motivates and drives you, particularly where, considering your background, I think isn't atypical for our sector. You're bringing in lots of pieces that I think are different. Maybe starting to that point, take us back, roll us back to, and tell us a bit about yourself and what has brought you to working for Synthace as it stands.
Sure. So yeah, I think you're correct, Nick. My background is completely eclectic and non-typical, I'd say. The short version is this. I'm an Israeli American, so born and raised in Israel, moved to the US some 20 years ago to the Washington, D.C. area. I was trained as a physicist. I have a PhD in physics. I then decided to also do an MBA just for giggles, because why not? And I've done it all the way from 2 people in a garage startup to Fortune 50, 80,000 people company, and anything in between that. But I would say, in general, what really is driving me is curiosity. I'm interested in learning more, in identifying more, in growing. It is about the journey of growth. It's not about the destination as much as it is the journey itself is the destination. And as part of that, every 5 years on average, I would change industry completely. Start from scratch is something completely different. So by now, I have done, let's see, B2B, B2C, B2B2C, B2G. The G is the government, God help me. I've done cybersecurity, mobile devices, optical communications, medical devices. I've sold wine over the internet. Wine is a big hobby of mine. We can run a podcast about that separately. But all in all, when I was looking around, and I'm always looking for the big opportunities, and life sciences struck me a few years back as being one of the most interesting, biggest disrupting forces that we will encounter in the 20s. And so when the opportunity to lead Synthace came along, it was an easy one for me. I decided this is what I want to do. This is the best use of my time.
It'd be great to hear about Synthace's mission and what you're hoping to achieve as an organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll actually start this with the quick story why I decided that Synthace is going to be the company for me. Why is it that I really am interested? So about a year and a half, knowing that I'm moving into life sciences, I was looking into Synthace, considering what's going on there. I presented the company to a person that's working in the top 20 pharma. And I asked her, a scientist, would you ever use this product? And what do you think of it? She came back to me after a day, says, I will never, ever use this product. So, all right, that's a pretty strong statement. Why wouldn't you use the product? That's a strong statement. At that point in time, that scientist she told me, look, guy, what I like to do when I run a science experiment, I want to use a pencil and a notebook, write it in a pencil, so that when I go to my manager discussing the result in a form of budget, I can actually erase it and fudge the numbers to get the budget that I need. And so when I looked at that, and I said, holy crap, we're talking like back in the 90s in technology. This is a huge opportunity. If this industry is ripe to those kind of changes, if those kind of things are coming along, then the mission of Synthace can become such a great mission to leapfrog the entire industry decades forward, and to really being able to allow that discovery stage, the preclinical drug discovery stage, to really digitalize that service and be much more effective and efficient in terms of what you discover and how you run science. Basically carrying science into the 21st century properly, the way it should be done.
Taking that forward now, and or actually maybe going back to the person that said no, fundamentally never. Are they since to be convinced?
I didn't go back to sell to them, but I will tell you that 8 of the top 12 pharma companies are customers of Synthace.
Okay.
So think of the big names; they're customers. All the big names that we all love and know.
Did you ever go back and say to her, "I told you so"?
No, not yet.
That would have been. I told you.
Yeah, I know. But the mission is really, it's an important mission. Look, I'm a doctor myself. I'm a PhD in physics. I spent 10 years in labs as a scientist, 5 years in a chemistry lab, 5 years in a physics lab. And as a scientist, the notion of pursuing the natural truth and being able to advance science and doing it in a logical way that's really is meaningful, using the best and latest technologies, is key to who we are. And what I've discovered shifting into life sciences about a year and a half ago, is that there's such a great opportunity to bring the entire field forward, to leverage the latest and greatest technologies, and to really make those technologies available to everyone, to leverage data, to leverage metadata, to create ontologies, to automate experimentation. Essentially, where we are today with Synthace, we are allowing scientists to pre-design the entire experiment and then automate it all, collect all the data, analyze it all. Effectively, you can cut a year of research and development into a month. And at the same time, save 90% of the cost, improve your the quality of the experiments, reducing variability, and improving the complexity of the science that you can deliver, science that otherwise cannot be delivered. And that's where the computer systems and technology really is coming to our aid.
For that radical impact and that drastic change and shifting from 12 months to 1 month, almost increasing productivity more than 10 times fold. What's where does the business take this forward then? Is it just about continuing to develop those steps, broadening the different discovery platforms that you work on? What's the next step for Synthace?
Yeah, so I'll say the following: we're very ambitious. You don't join startups, and you don't do startups unless you're ambitious and you want to change the world for the better, obviously. So the way we look at it is we're looking at life sciences R&D phase, the preclinical, when you're still at the discovery phase. And what we're trying to create is an entire platform that can serve all scientists, all life scientists, that are seeking to really advance science and take it to the next level. And so we're spending a lot of time to bring on board AI and machine learning, for example, as tools that can really drive science to the next level. We're spending a lot of time and effort to bring the gospel of the automation and high throughputs. We started our course from DOE, Design for Experiment. when you can run multiple experiments, multiple permutations of experiments in parallel, and essentially map an n-dimensional space of solutions to get the optimal solution. So we're pushing the envelope in all of those directions and many more to really get scientists to spend more time thinking, and deeply so, rather than just doing the rot Excel planning and analysis or pipetting to that effect.
And this being your first move then into life sciences, how is it, and that real mission in trying to change the environment? It sounds like actually the data plays that you've been involved in before had similar, broader spread plays. Have you found distinct differences between being in this sector versus others?
Yeah, I would say one of the things that you learn with time is that the one resource you can never replenish is your time. Money comes and goes, and if you're pursuing just a well-paying job or just a big buck somewhere, that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you will not have used your time properly. One of the most impressive things that I've seen in life sciences, and specifically for me in Synthace, there's an amazing mission here. And it's a true mission to better humanity. In previous role, I was a key management member for a big data analytics unicorn. We built a unicorn, basically a multiple billion-dollar company, Synthace. And the goal there was to bring the message of data, analytics, and logic to the way people run any business. It's great. It's important. But that mission doesn't compare to the mission of being able to help scientists discover a new drug that would alleviate or provide cure for a condition or a disease in record time and improve the life of many people on a global scale. That kind of mission is something that's incomparable. And so the test is, at the end of life, when I'm sitting with a good glass of wine in hand and all the grandkids running around and they ask me, Grandpa, what is it that you've done in your life that's important? I would look back at the Synthace days and say, wow, this was it. This was a good use of my time, and what we delivered is a significant mission for humanity to better humanity.
And you've held very C-suite level positions over the years. Yeah. How did you actually find the transition from Chief Strategy Officer at SciSign to CEO at Synthace?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I've been in the C-suite for, I want to say, a decade here by now. All sorts of roles, vice president roles, and CTO, CSO, etc. Last role was Chief Strategy Officer at SciSign, indeed. And I remember about a couple of years ago, I came to my CEO, previous CEO, who was also a friend, and I told him, look, come here. I'm good at what I'm doing, but I'm not doing everything I'm good at. And I think it's the time for me to really take the reins and lead the company. And we're good friends, so there was no problem going through this kind of discussion. At this stage, I would say at that point, I figured out I've ran and led basically every part of a business, be that engineering, product, sales, customer success, marketing, you name it. I've ran that part of the business. So I figured, okay, I know what it takes to be a CEO. Boy, was I wrong. And what happens is that when you end up sitting in the big seat, you realize that for me, it's that about 40% of the job you cannot train for. You're being thrown to the deep end, and you need to be able to sink or swim. Now, it's great that the other 60% is covered. So I know what to look for in marketing or sales or engineering or product or CS. I know all of that. That's great. It eases up the pain, but I still need to do 40% of my job, basically something that I've never done before. No one trained me how to do it. And it's an amazing challenge, but also an amazing growth opportunity. So the transition, to answer your question, was not trivial, but it was extremely rewarding in the sense that it provided significant ability for personal growth.
And what was the most challenging part of that 40%, that untrained part, the sink or swim part? What was the single most challenging part of that journey? and to be.
So I would say the following. The most challenging part of being a leader, any leader in any role, is always the people. We live in a human-centric world, so it's all about the people. It really is all about the people. However, that part was not new to me in my role. It wasn't the part that's, all right, then what is this thing called people and how do we handle them? What was really new to me was the need to manage investors, to manage the board, to raise around. I've done it before, but I was part of the round raising or the roadshow. I was never the person who was carrying the fate and the fate of the company and the livelihood of 75 people on their shoulder, and that needed to ensure that we can make payroll. Yeah, and that's a new one. That's at the end of the day, when you walk into an investment committee meeting, it's on you. You cannot sit quiet and let someone else do the talking. You're the CEO. You're the one that needs to be able to tell the right story and ensure the survivability and growth of the company.
To anyone else considering making that move, then would you recommend it? Or would you tell them to run to the hills?
Absolutely recommend it. It's fun. It's an amazing fun. It's very rewarding. It's high stress role for sure, and you work long hours. But I think one of the biggest privileges being in that role is the privilege of working with people, going back full circle to people, and the ability to really craft the culture of the company and in the shape of the way you would like to see a culture being built, an environment being built and created. And that is really powerful. One of the biggest advantages, for example, we have with Synthace is we're a 75 people company with 26 nationalities in the company. My management team, we have 9 people in management across 5 different nationalities. We have Brits, Americans, Lithuanian, French, and Israeli, all in the management team. And what you have is this amazing power of diversity and inclusiveness of opinions. And so if you craft the culture of the org properly, what you have is an extremely strong environment that can really excel. And so to answer your question, Nick, is I would highly recommend people, if they can and are willing to take the personal toll of the stress and long hours, to go and do this role, bearing in mind that the impact that you have on the company is outsized. I always say, when the CEO sneezes, everyone below them gets pneumonia. And so this is something that you need to understand.
How do you deal with the stress and the strains, the rate and pace, the expectation and responsibility? How do you manage the stress load?
Yeah, it's a good question. Maybe it's with experience, and I have decades of experience by now in general. I don't do stress. I'm a pretty calm guy, pretty chill kind of guy. And so it's very rare. I usually measure my level of stress by how many sleepless nights I have. Sort of when you wake up at 2 a.m. in your bed and you cannot fall back asleep because your mind keeps racing. Oh, what should I do with the business here? What should I do with the business there? And when I look back over the past year plus in Synthace, I think cumulative I had 4 such nights. That's it. And that including raising around, dealing with changing the entire management team, moving people, shifting strategies, repositioning, rebranding. So all in all, I think it's just the nature, my own nature and all the experience I brought with me that allows me to push through the stress and not let it get to me.
And then with the business and its journey going forward, what do you see as the biggest challenge, the biggest hurdles to overcome?
Well, the biggest challenge in general in any company, in my mind, is people. Get the right people on the bus. Make sure that you have the right people for the journey ahead. Having said that, assuming and understanding that people is the number one challenge, then the next challenge is that this is an industry, life sciences industry, that is somewhat slow to adopt new technologies and new methodologies. And even if you're talking about the less regulated or the not regulated parts of the industry. And because you're dealing with scientists, they're very skeptical. They need to see the data, they need to see the proof that indeed what you're offering to them is something that will bring them value. And so to a degree, what we're bringing forward is something that's very powerful, that can really allow science to advance in leaps and bounds. We just need to prove it to the industry. The biggest challenge of any startup is awareness, not competition. No one knows about you. And when they do, what is it that they know about you? Do they know that you're able to help them deliver science at an unparalleled pace? And do they believe that?
And it's that point that you make on the life science industry being slow to evolve, I think is fundamentally really fair. I think I've only ever recruited into the life science space and sector, and I think this is consistent from people that I hear that have come in from outside industry and into it, is actually there's a lot of desire to change, but actually very difficult to make those monumental shifts and to really utilize the advantages that, and this happens in multiple areas, from technology all the way through to the way we run our marketing, that actually we need to adopt methodology to thought processes from outside of industry to implement in industry. We have to open our eyes, and I think actually your background and one of these challenges that we often have from a recruitment perspective for positions that are often non-technical, we still have a requirement to find someone from industry. The brief is very much find someone from sector rather than looking in other areas. Maybe again, it goes back to something you mentioned there on that diversity and that mentality within the organization that you've got all these heads from different types of environments, I presume, people that look at everything through different lenses in order to find a solution. Do you think that diversity gives you a true edge against your competitors?
Absolutely, and I would say more than that. My career, as I said early on, is my career kept changing. So every 5 years, I would change industry to something completely different. It really helps career progression at the beginning. The first 10, 15 years, you progress in, let's say, the field of cybersecurity. You get to the level of director. Then I shifted to mobile and mobile application. And people will say, well, I'm director of product management. Yeah, but they'll tell me, yeah, but that's cyber. That's not mobile. So you need to step down. And then let's see that you know what you're doing before you step up again. After about 15 years, what happens is that you begin to bring economy of scope to the role. I encounter problems today that I've encountered in the past in different guises, in different industries, in different ways. And I'm aware of different ways to address those problems or challenges. And so in a way, by coming from outside the industry, the life sciences industry, there's significant advantage. And so when I was looking to change my management team, what I did is I promoted from within some of the most talented people that we had in the company that were sort of buried below for whatever reason. And so those folks came with the life sciences background and the experience. But our VP sales come from software, from a software company that was B2B2C. Our VP marketing comes from another software background that was selling to engineers. Our chief product officer comes from B2C environment, so completely different. And what we have now is significant advantage because we bring different playbooks, different experiences, different best practices to the game, as well as diversity of thought and experience. And we hash it out. We talk about it very openly and very directly. And at the same time, we have the core of life sciences, the co-founder that's on the board and on management, the chief scientific officer, that will tell us, guys, this is all great, but in what we're doing, this is the way we should think about it. So what you have is a great cross-pollination of 3, 4, 5 different industries all coming together in a management team and across the company to be able to create something that's really powerful and strong.
We talk about at Cavenagh Health culture, eating strategy for breakfast. What defines great culture at Synthace?
It's interesting. When I was trying to define what are the key values that I would like to see in Synthace, and I was very careful. I don't have those big posters on the wall. Our mission is this, our culture is this, our values are that. But because, I was very, very careful. I don't want to force this kind of view. But when I'm asked, I say, here are my values, knowing well that CEO's values sort of percolate to the rest of the org. So my 3 values are nerdiness. We're total nerds, all of us. 40% of the company is PhDs. We discuss Star Trek all day long. I'm a Trekkie. I can talk. And by the way, Captain Picard, not Captain Kirk. And a big question I always ask myself, it's called WWPD. What would Picard do? But that's just me. Other people have Star Wars. Other people have animes. And so nerdiness runs, and that's part of the value. And we embrace that. The second value that I carry forward is authenticity. I'm very authentic. I sit down meetings with a t-shirt or a hoodie, even when I go in front of investors, speaking to people that have billions of dollars of assets under management and saying, all right, should we invest in Synthace in the next round? I'm still sitting with a t-shirt or a hoodie. This is really who I am. When I'm taking calls from home, I sit in my wine cellar in the DC area. There's a lot of great wine, bottles of wine behind my back, but this is who I am. I never blur my background. This is who I am, very authentic. So authenticity is that second value. And the third one is excellence. It's really ensure that you have excellent people on board. Don't compromise. And in many cases, people become B players because of the environment rather than their innate potential. They may have the potential to become A players, but maybe not in a specific environment. And you need to recognize that and not put the blame on the person as much as there may not be a fit. There may not be a fit between the person and the environment. But in either case, part ways from people that cannot really express the full potential and become excellent in your environment. Make sure that you bring the best people on board and make sure that you have the best people in the company. All in all, this is sort of the culture that I'm trying to shape in the company. And that drives, and that's when we decide on strategy, and we have decided on strategy. And again, previous role as Chief Strategy Officer, I tend to think naturally in strategic terms. The culture becomes a source of power to drive the strategy, as opposed to creating a misalignment between those two elements.
And sort of talking about sort of what I'm hearing is sort of bringing your true self to work. I think that's really important. So, role modeling that sort of individually and collectively, people are more creative and collaborative and innovative if they can bring them true selves to work. So that really speaks to me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Guy.
During the periods of lockdown, did you find that the culture is the same as it was? And perhaps you've joined mid lockdowns. Is that fair to say? Sort of through the thick of it. Yeah. Has the culture evolved since we've now started to come out of lockdowns, or your version of it and what you thought it was versus what it is today? Has your opinion changed?
Yeah. So it's a great question. I'll say there are two major processes that happen at Synthace. One has to do with the lockdown and COVID, and the other one has to do with getting a new CEO. And what happened is this. First of all, we realized, the world in general realized, you can work very effectively from home, remote. The three of us don't need to sit in the same studio to have a great conversation, right? And so to a great degree, I became sort of a remote CEO. HQ is in London. I sit in DC, and I've got an office in Boston. And what you have is between all of this is a great way for us to be very effective. And what's more than that, I joined the company at a certain point in time. Within a few days, I was on a plane meeting the team in Boston, but it took me another 2 months before I was able to go to London when travel would resume and COVID subsided, at least to a degree. The first meeting with the chief strategy officer, where we already worked together, we met in person for the first time, and it was funny. So I'm the Israeli American, and he's a great. He's a PhD in biochemistry and PhD in physics. The first thing we did was not shake hands. The first thing we did was hug, and it was this stronger human connection that emerged from that. So what you have is a combination of, yes, we've learned how to work remote, and that's the COVID, but then you have a CEO, and the change of CEO is such an important event in the life of a company because the culture shifts by definition. Now that we eased the lockdown requirements and people are getting back to the office, what we're seeing is actually a shift in the culture, and we made a conscious decision that we're going to work in a hybrid mode. That is, we don't require people to go back to the office for 5 days a week or something like that. Again, depending on the role, if you're working in a lab, it's a bit hard to operate your lab from your living room. So you may need to be at the office at our lab more often than that. But the culture is culture of trust. We trust each other to be able to do the job, even despite the challenges, even despite not being in person, even not seeing everyone at the office, only seeing your boss on a Zoom call most of the days.
How do you think your role in growing and supporting your teams has changed across the various positions you've held?
I'd say this. At first, I'll say I really enjoy leading people. I look at it as a true privilege, the ability to interact with people and human beings. And I spent a lot of time at the beginning of my career when I became a leader and a manager, a lot of time trying to, quote unquote, fix people. I would say, all right, you should be doing that. And I'm using the term fix on purpose rather than mentor. Because I was young, I was naive, and I was freaking arrogant, but I know what needs to happen and how to get people to do what they need to do to really excel in their work. And over time, I realized it's the wrong approach. I love mentoring people, and I love keeping in touch with anyone that ever reported through me. And they all know they can ping me out of the blue, and I'll immediately sit down with them. Earlier today, I met for lunch with someone that I hired 5 years ago, and then moved on from managing her, I want to say 3 years ago. And she pinged me, says, "Hey, let's have lunch." Sure, let's meet. What happened over the years, Steph, to answer your question, is that I shifted into a mentor role and a leader role that is trying to help people achieve their potential, and not my perception of what they should be doing, but much more of guiding them to uncover what is it that they should be doing for themselves and their own innate abilities.
It is a great thing, isn't it, where you look back on people's career and see where you've influenced them, and some 5 or 10 or years more, people still come to you for that counsel because you're still the mentor that you once were to them. On coaching, I had a real light bulb moment actually when somebody once said to me, "If you're thinking about the answers, you're not asking the right questions."
Yeah, it's a good statement. Wonderful. Yeah, it's a good statement.
Yeah. Some great coaches over the years that really have been really instrumental in my career. So, how do you see the life science industry progressing in the next 5 to 10 years?
I'm extremely bullish on the life sciences industry. I think the 20s is going to be the life sciences decade. We sort of saw it with the mRNA vaccinations, moving in very quickly to really help against COVID. But it's only the beginning. I mean, when we will look back at the end of the 20s, we look back on the advancement that we've done during this decade, and we will be amazed. the depth of our understanding, the quality of cues and drugs, the ability to improve people's quality of life in such a significant manner is something that it's pretty much akin to the revolution of the personal computer that emerged, or the internet that took our life in a storm. This is what's going to happen. I'm super bullish on life sciences. And it's not that, yes, I was on the outside looking in, saying, well, this sounds like a great opportunity. Now that I'm inside, I'm even more excited about what we'll be able to achieve here. And I think what's happening is, in a way, I'm an early adopter. I can see the patterns ahead of time. We'll begin to see more and more executives like myself that weren't born and raised in life sciences, that are actually coming from outside life sciences and look at it as a great opportunity. So we'll see more funding going in and more execs coming from high tech into life sciences, or the interface between biotech, life sciences, and high tech, sort of the life tech, if you'd like, which is sort of where I'm at now, developing software, cloud software to enable scientists to achieve the best science they can achieve.
I think that's a really good point you make there. It feels, and being in the industry, it feels like we're on a sort of snowball effect, that it's these mounting developments and changes in the tools and technologies that pharma, biotech have to use in a host of areas through discovery, manufacturing, etc. It's those things that are really going to arm the industry to just accelerate at a rate and pace it's never seen before. And really, the first piece that needs to come into play is these tools, the technology that needs to be adapted in order to accelerate what we're doing. I think there's loads of great examples of how the industry is changing and how it's evolving so rapidly. Particularly if you wind back and you looked back at it in the industry, even in the noughties versus where we are now, it radically changed. It's got a long way to go, but it certainly feels like a snowball effect.
Absolutely. And look, the biggest challenge, I think, would be changing minds and changing hearts. It's getting the scientists, as we said earlier, to understand the technology can really allow them to progress much more quickly. And I already see that. We already see that kind of change and modification happening. We have customers, top 10 pharma, that would go on stage with us and literally would say, science that we could have not achieved without Synthace now is available, now is possible. And for them, it was a complete 180 from let us do it the old way to give us more of this new way, because the benefit, the advantage is unbelievable.
Then knowing what you know now and where you've got to in your career, do you think you would have joined the life science space any earlier?
No, I don't think so. I think the timing is right, both for me personally. I've learned a lot on the way to life sciences, and possibly life sciences where I will be most accomplished and feel best about what I'm doing. And so for me, in terms of my own journey, my own personal journey and growth, this is it. But also I think the time is right and ripe for life sciences to really take center stage this decade. There was a lot of interesting advancement that happened in the past, but I think we have the perfect storm now brewing where life sciences can really achieve everything that it can achieve.
You mentioned that you go through they're like 5-year cycles where you want to keep challenging yourself and you want to keep progressing. If pharma, biotech, if this opportunity hadn't existed or this industry didn't exist, where do you think you would have gone instead? Where do you think that home would have been?
I was looking at about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, when I said, right, time for me to shift. I was looking at 3 industries. I was looking at quantum computing, I was looking at healthcare, and I was looking at life sciences. And I was speaking to a lot of entrepreneurs and investors. Healthcare was too heavily regulated for my liking. I'm a free spirit. I like to operate, move fast, and you can achieve great impact in healthcare as long as you do it the slow way, the regulated way. And I wouldn't have been able to really excel in that kind of environment. I also looked really hard at quantum computing, but it was too early. We're still at the very early stage of defining the basic science that will be what will be the basis. And there are computing technology, the basis for the computers, the quantum computers of the future. So that's probably another 5 years out before we have that in place. Whereas life sciences is just right. It's the Goldilocks zone for life sciences.
Someone, it sounds like you've got a massive, just because of the breadth of knowledge that you've got this massive appetite for learning. If someone came to you and said, look, I want to get into the life science sector, my knowledge base is near enough to zero. What I get on the news is about it, which is probably not a good start. What would be your best advice to them in terms of learning? Where would you go and get that knowledge from? Where do you think the fastest place to start and accelerate that learning journey for someone would be?
Yeah, so the way I usually do that, whenever I shift, and what I did here as well, is I go on Google News, I set up a news feed according to specific keywords, and I spend the first month reading every article that comes in over that daily email. So there are like 10 links or whatever. I go click every link and I read. I just read. I don't pretend to understand what I'm reading, but I read through all of that. And what happens after a month of doing this kind of exercise, you have a very strong sense of the industry, of the people, of the culture, of the terminology, of the ontology, of what does it feel like. For me, coming into life sciences from high tech, it's like entering through the mirror. This is a parallel universe. It really is parallel. Different investors, different terminologies, different ontologies, different momentum, different ways of doing business. But it is still human-centric. So humans sit at the heart of this industry or that industry. So as long as you understand that and you take the human point of view as a central point of view, then you are able to really carry it to the next level, and you were able to study. So if someone were to join it, if you were to recruit or find an exec that comes from, I don't know, cybersecurity or telecommunications or what have you, and tell them, look, there's a great opportunity in life sciences, and they'll tell you, well, I don't know anything about life sciences, then this is not just a challenge, it's a great opportunity. That person will come in and learn all of this with fresh set of eyes. And they would look at what was the playbook or best practices and say, well, there's a better way of doing it. When I hired our director of people and culture, we published the position. We had 80 applications, and we decided that we want to go with her because she told me in an interview something very interesting. She told me, Guy, best practices is for lazy people. And you need to be able to think for yourself. And that's a major advantage. If you're able to think, if you're intelligent and open-minded, no matter what industry you'll come from, you will make the impact as long as you're willing to learn.
Okay. I think that's great advice for anyone looking at the sector, and probably great advice for many people in the sector as well. Good. Well, look, guys, it's been brilliant to sit down and meet with you and properly talk about the business and where it's going. I think it's incredible the transition you've made. It's not easy, and I think with a piece of technology like yours and what the business is developing, it sounds like many people are already benefiting, but there's an exciting future ahead for the business.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great fun, and I highly recommend. I told you, I'm bullish about life sciences. It's such an amazing opportunity. I'm loving the role. I'm loving the company. I'm loving what we're doing in our mission.
It's totally infectious. Absolutely came across. Thanks so much for spending time and hanging out with us this afternoon, Guy, and wishing you and the team every success.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really appreciate it. It's not easy, but it's definitely rewarding.